Almighty God, we pray for your blessing upon this council. Help and prosper its work for the advancement and benefit of its people, so that peace and happiness, unity and justice may be established among us all. Amen. Manningham Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as traditional owners of lands and waterways now known as Manningham. Council pays respect to elders past, present and emerging, and values the ongoing contribution to enrich and appreciate the cultural heritage of Manningham. Council acknowledges and respects Australia's First Peoples as traditional owners of lands and waterways across country and encourages reconciliation between all. Manningham Council also values the contribution made to Manningham over the years by people of diverse backgrounds and cultures. Welcome everybody, welcome to all members of the public joining us today, and welcome to all of you online to observe tonight's proceedings. I would also like to recognise and welcome Ryan Smith, our former member of Warrandyte. Thank you to you and Avril for joining us tonight, and your staff. I would like to note that tonight's meeting is being audio and video recorded. All care will be taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the gallery, it is assumed your consent is given in the event your voice and/or image is broadcast by Council. Council meetings are conducted in accordance with our governance rules. I will introduce each line of business as listed on the agenda, calling it by number and by reading the title. I will then call for a mover and a seconder of a motion on the item before opening any debate. Only councillors are able to join the debate on an item. Councillors may adopt the officer's recommendation in the report or propose amendments and supplementary motions. I would like to draw your attention to item 7 on tonight's agenda, public question time, which provides people with an opportunity to ask questions of the Council. Council has allocated 30 minutes for question time at tonight's meeting, and the process for question time is set out in our governance rules. Questions must be received prior to the start of the meeting to be asked. Where we receive advance notice of a question, in accordance with our governance rules, we will provide a verbal response to the question at our meeting. Questions we receive up to 7 p.m. today may be taken on notice if we don't have the information on hand to provide a meaningful response. If this happens, you will be provided with a written response to your question within 10 working days. I will deal with a maximum of 2 questions per person and 2 questions on any one issue. You'll be asked to come forward to the lectern to ask your question, where you will have the opportunity to provide a 2-minute introductory statement before asking your question. If you have more than 2 questions, please submit these additional questions in writing to Council through the normal channels. To ensure the efficient conduct of our meeting and maximum participation during question time, all questions and answers shall be as brief as possible, and no discussion is permitted on any question. Councillors and the gallery are reminded that question time is to be conducted in a respectful manner, and any disorderly conduct will be managed in accordance with our governance rules. I'll move on to item number 2, apologies and requests for leave of absence. So we have Councillor Michelle Kleinert, who is online. Thank you for joining us, Councillor Kleinert. Can you please confirm that you can see and hear me?
I can confirm.
Thank you. So there are no apologies this evening. Councillors, are there any requests for leave of absence? None. Thank you. Item number 3, prior notification of conflict of interest. So I would like to advise that I have received a written disclosure of conflict of interest for tonight's meeting from the CEO for item 17.2 concerning procurement of independent advisor, Chief Executive Officer, Employment and Remuneration Committee. The interest being a material conflict of interest, as a successful tenderer will be advising the Council on CEO employment and remuneration matters. Councillors, would anyone of you like to give a conflict of interest notice? Thank you. Item number 4, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a mover?
that the recommendation be adopted that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 22nd of August 2023 and that the council meeting of the 12th of September 2023 be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor Carly Lang. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Thomas Lightbody. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item number 5, presentations. 5.1, acknowledgement of Ryan Smith. So I'm just going to move to the lectern, Ryan. I have a few notes to read out. So it is a great honour to speak as Mayor tonight, as I express Council's heartfelt thanks to you, Ryan, a man who has devoted 16 years of his life to serving our beloved Warrandyte community, the seat of Warrandyte, which is broader than Warrandyte, yes. Ryan, you have been a pillar of strength for the community since you first assumed office in 2006. Your dedication, commitment and exceptional leadership has shaped the vibrant and thriving township of Warrandyte and all the other suburbs that make up that seat. I've personally witnessed a countless number of high praises about you. And in fact, just after you resigned, I had so many community groups and people come up to me and say, we will really miss Ryan, his support and involvement in the community, and it very much transcended political lines. It was about you and your personal contribution as well. In today's current political climate, this speaks volumes of your character and your success in serving such a passionate community. Your service to the community was notable during some of your life's most critical years as you and your wife Avril raised your 2 young children. And we recognise that a role like this really does take the whole commitment of a family. You are retiring with an inspiring list of ministries, including Minister for Youth Affairs and Minister for Environment and Climate Change. You've also represented an impressive 13 shadow ministries, including Shadow Special Minister of State, Shadow Minister for Finance and Shadow Minister for Planning and Heritage, and I'm constantly amazed how people like yourself can get your mind around so many issues in such quick fashion as well. And through all of this, you've attended countless council events and meetings with our mayors and CEOs, and we know you've seen a few. But most of all has been your unwavering advocacy and engagement with our residents, which has always been a testament to your genuine care and commitment to your role and the community. And you did that right up until your very last day. You have said that it was a privilege to serve and represent the communities across your seat of Warrandyte, but has also been a privilege for your community to benefit from your passion, commitment and drive for the past 16 years. On behalf of Council and the entire community in the seat of Warrandyte, I thank you and wish you all the best for your next chapter and all your future endeavours. Your contributions will not be forgotten, and I hope you're not a stranger to Council. Thank you very much, Ryan. Over here. Can I just come on over here?
I hate photos.
Really? They had 16 years ago. Sorry, I'm just going to grab one too. Thank you. There you go. Thank you.
I won't take up too much of Council's time, and I want to begin by saying I'm very honoured to be allowed to be here today, and I really appreciate every one of you for your willingness to have me along and your willingness to recognise my service. I think the great thing about working with councillors is that we do come to our jobs with a joint responsibility to the community. We're all here to work together, and I think that my office certainly has benefited enormously from having great relationships with both councillors and council officers over the years. No council has been obviously as good as the one that's here, so well done. But I've certainly formed friendships over that time for long-serving councillors like Jeff, Michelle, who's been a friend for a very long time, Andrew, I could go through everyone, Anna, Carly, going through your first term, it's been a real pleasure to get to know you, Thomas and Stephen and Laura. I've had nothing but support from councillors over the years, and the ones here and the ones before as well. Council officers, Andrew, you run a fantastic ship of council officers who want to help all the time in terms of my office and also the community more broadly. And I think that I'm sure you're as proud as of your team as you should be. It's true that politics can be frustrating at times, and certainly I reached the point where the politics of my role probably got to the point where I didn't want to continue. But I have to say that the enjoyment and pleasure that I've had through working in my community never once diminished, even when I decided to make the decision to leave. So whether it be the sporting clubs or the CFAs, neighbourhood houses, or all those many wonderful groups that we all work with, the pleasure of working with those people and advocating for their causes has never, the pleasure of doing that has never once diminished. And it's one thing I must say that I will miss in leaving is that the people that have come to mean something to me and the causes that I believe have been worth fighting for is something that I'm obviously going to be stepping away from, and my role in that is now going to be diminished somewhat, and I do regret that even today. But as I say, it is very much time for a new chapter, and it's been a pleasure, I guess, to hear and read so many of the lovely comments that I got when announcing my retirement. It really, you often, as in an elected role, get used to the negativity at times, and people who have got things to say which aren't always completely kind. But on leaving, I had a wonderful outpouring of goodwill from the community, and I felt like I was being eulogised before my time almost, in that it was just, I had people who were even recalling a meeting that I might have had with them 10 years ago, and it's heartening to know that as an elected official you do have an impact on people who will come back to you and remember that time that you spent with them, and in many cases, particularly over the COVID period, when they were really hurting and when they really needed someone to talk to or someone who they believed would reach out and help them. It was certainly during that time during the COVID time, that I really felt that we as elected officials really needed to stand up and be leaders for our community and be there for them when in many cases they thought no one else was going to be. So it's the right time to go. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and speak. I'm very confident I'm leaving the electorate in good hands with the new member for Warrandyte. I want to just finish by thanking again councillors for having me here, council officers, Andrew, for your efforts, to Courtney Power, my ancillary staff member, who has just been fantastic over the course of the last few years, and my former staff are here tonight, and I wanted to thank them, but we all know, Marty, how good Courtney was in assisting us along the way, and as a representative of council, she's been exemplary. I want to thank, again, just my staff for their efforts in being with me. Helen, who was with me for the entire time that I was a member. Marty, who was with me for 7 years and was largely the face of my office to many of the constituents. To Antonietta, who is bubbly and infectious and enthusiastic, and someone who's brought just a whole life to the office, and it's been somewhat of a wrench to leave those three people. To my children, who have been with me through the entire time of politics and are getting used to having their father not in politics now, and they've really been great to stand by me. And finally, to Avril, who is here tonight, who's indulged me in a career that's been all-encompassing in so many ways, and I think we're ready for the next chapter of our journey, and the next chapter will be a lot of fun, and we're going to enjoy a lot more time together, perhaps out of the scrutiny of public eye. So thank you very much again to everyone here. Thank you to the community for supporting me over the years. Thank you to you, Madam Mayor, for having me here today, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
You're welcome to stay, but if you need to go, you're welcome to go as well.
I might leaving the council business.
Okay,
But
thank
I'd
you.
love to keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so in the theme of presentations, I also have some wonderful staff service awards to present. So councillors, we had a number of staff who recently celebrated significant milestones in their years of service here at Manningham. I would like to acknowledge the following council officers. So for 20 years of service, I'm just going to put my spectacles on, everybody. I'm sorry, my eyes are getting a bit tired. Okay, let's start again. For 20 years of service, we have Kelly Fegan from the Aged and Disability Services team, Ekaterini Katsafaris from the City Compliance team, Rosemary Massenhelder from the Aged and Disability Services team, Sebastian Nanu from the Infrastructure Services team, and Kathy Willis from the Sustainable Futures team. For 25 years of service, we have Helen Angus from the Financial Services team, Pina Chirambulu from the Financial Services team, Chris Maters from City Compliance team, and Rosemary Morey from the Environmental Health team. For 30 years of service, Anna Robertson from the Children's Services team. And joining us tonight for 40 years of service, which is absolutely extraordinary service, we have Carol Harvey from the Aged and Disability Services team. And just before we give Carol a round of applause, she's also accompanied by Anne Kelly, who today also we thanked for her time as 40 years volunteer in the Meals on Wheels program. So could we please first congratulate Carol for your wonderful service to us and also to the community councillors. I think we'd also like to give you, Anne, a round of applause as well for your 40 years in volunteering. Thank you, Anne. And without stealing my own thunder from what I was going to present at the end of council on the event today, I do want to quote one of our officers who said, and this is apt for both of you, you dedicate your lives every day to just make other people's lives better. And that's an absolute gift for them, and it's a gift from you. So thank you again, both of you, and thank you for joining us here tonight. And congratulations to all the other officers for their staff service awards, and thank you for all of their contributions to Manningham City Council. Item number 6, petitions. There are no petitions. Item number 7, public question time. So we have received a number of questions for tonight's council meeting. Anyone submitting a question to council will have the opportunity to read out their question or can choose to have their question read out by our CEO. Our first question is from Stella Yee. Stella, would you like to come to the lectern? So, Stella, you have 2 minutes to make an introductory remark before asking your question.
Councillors, CEO and today, council officers and staff, and fellow residents. My name is Stella Yee, and I'm here as a Manningham resident and an seen the mass killings of indigenous peoples of this country. They brought diseases which wiped out a significant number of indigenous peoples. And for decades, they took away indigenous and Torres Strait Islander children from their families. Imagine if all of that had happened to us and our families. Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander peoples were not counted as people in the census until after the 1967 referendum. Imagine that. Sadly, this acknowledgement that we see them as people is not enough. They are facing dire life outcomes where their youth are among the most incarcerated in the world. Their life expectancy is at least 8 years less than other Australians, etc. The Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander peoples want to offer advice and solutions on matters that affect them. We want us to hear them through a voice to Parliament. Melbourne City Council and our neighbouring council, Nillumbik, have declared their support for the voice to Parliament and have organised educational events. Manningham Council, on the other hand, has decided not to step up and meet the moment, but to shrink from it. It did not declare support for the voice of Parliament and has chosen to do the bare minimum, with just half a page of information on its website. My first question is, in 2020, Manningham Council led the state by being one of the first Victorian councils to declare the climate emergency. And the council did so without waiting until it was a popular thing to do. In 2021, Manningham Council felt the need to remind residents to be kind to one another while we live through the pandemic years by running the Be Kind Manningham campaign. This year, 2023, is an important moment in Australian history. We have the opportunity to say yes to recognizing the Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander peoples of this country in the Constitution by giving them a voice to Parliament. Why is Manningham Council unwilling to show the same leadership and stand with this country's first peoples who seek to be recognized and be heard? My second question is, the Uluru Statement from the Heart came about after years of consultation among many First Peoples of Australia nationwide. We arrived at the consensus that to improve their life outcomes, they need self-determination, and for them to be able to provide advice to the federal parliament through an advisory committee called the Voice, much like the advisory committees that we see listed on page 3 in tonight's agenda. Manningham Council's website says that the local government plays a key role in activating reconciliation within local communities by playing the leadership role in creating meaningful relationships and recognizing and supporting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders' self-determination and cultural rights. Since Manningham Council is unwilling to support the Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander people's request for self-determination and to hear them, why should we believe that Manningham Council is genuinely committed to its own reconciliation action plan? Doesn't Council's meaningful position on the voice referendum demonstrate an unwillingness to walk the walk?
Thank you, Stella. So I will respond to both of your questions. Like the majority of Victorian councils, Manningham Council has not taken a position on the referendum. Instead, Council has been encouraging community members to do their own research, read information from reputable sources, and talk to people with different views to inform their vote. We support this position by providing links on our website to the Commonwealth Government and the Australian Electoral Commission to assist the community in informing themselves on both sides of the voice. The Wurundjeri Woiwurrung Cultural Heritage Aboriginal Corporation is aware of our neutral position. For your background, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung Corporation has only recently itself made a formal statement regarding the referendum, and councillors received their statement yesterday. In accordance with our RAP, we have committed to share this position. It reads as follows. Elders at the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung Cultural Heritage Aboriginal Corporation have taken a formal position on the voice to Parliament to actively support the yes vote. The decision made by the Wurundjeri Board of Directors comes after months of careful consideration and community consultations, including 2 face-to-face meetings with the Minister for Indigenous Australians, Linda Burney. Wurundjeri Woiwurrung Cultural Heritage Aboriginal Corporation Deputy Chair, Uncle Andrew Gardner, said the decision was not taken lightly, acknowledging the many views across the Wurundjeri community. We support a yes vote and we want constitutional change that recognises us as First Peoples, Uncle Andrew said. Ultimately, the elders at Wurundjeri want to say in the matters that impact our community, those decisions made by the government that affect country, our culture and our families. We want to be part of a representative group that goes to Canberra and says that it is what our needs are, and we want to push for those needs. The Wurundjeri community has a long history of post-colonial political engagement. esteemed Wurundjeri ancestors Simon Wonga, William Barrack, Babajan, Babilari and Ningan Labul were all well-known and active participants in the political scene as Melbourne was built around them. Not only was our culture passed down from our ancestors, but so was our fighting spirit, our negotiation, diplomacy, and above all, our fundamental regard for our people, our country, and our way of life, Uncle Andrew said. Now we call on those living on Wurundjeri country, the many people living in the Greater Melbourne area, to vote yes in this referendum. Give us your vote, give us a voice, and say in how our lives are governed. It's time we're recognised. It's time for constitutional change. And that was a statement put out by the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung Corporation. Thank you, Stella. Our next two questions are from Gary Siganek. Gary, would you like to come to the lectern? Again, Gary, you have 2 minutes to make an introductory statement before asking your questions.
Thank you. The truth is out and we know where the council is going now. But in the meantime, the inefficiencies of the works and the over-the-top expense to the ratepayers in the long and short term are noticed by everyone with building experience. A minimum of 6 workers, with most of the time only one person laying bricks, and the whole process has been unnecessarily long. The charge out for a labourer is commonly $1,200 per day times 6 workers times 5 days in a week equals over $30,000 a week. Times 7 weeks, it's over $200,000 in wages. That doesn't include the ridiculous decision to reuse the bricks, which means they're transported away, cleaned, then transported back. No wonder with this nonsense that the workers have been told not to talk to us. They've been silenced. This is a big expense only so the council can say in 2 years' time, when in their own words they can revisit doing an upgrade to Maston Square again. They can say we're only ripping up an old layout, so it's no big deal. Instead of opting for a more practical solution that would have been completed much faster with a lot less expense and to a higher safety standard, there are many examples already in other centres. The council should be bringing the traders along with them. This is fundamental for trust. Instead of keeping us in the dark and just spoon-feeding us their plans, which is disrespectful. This is a failure of the council and our elected leaders. We're calling on our councillors to facilitate a full disclosure to the traders of what the council is planning for our centre. To praise the council, I thank you for removing the trees in front of my shop, which have been problematic for years, and I spoke to your arborist, who I have confidence has made a thoughtful choice in the new trees. We have a very prominent frontage now, so when we install new signs, they'll be able to be seen all over the centre by everyone. So thank you. Again, no to narrowing Maston Road. Keep Maston Square safe. Thank you. Okay. Question 1. Does the new pedestrian paving meet the National Construction Code of P4 standards, and has a pendulum slip test been carried out to rate the crossing, and what is the rating? Question 2. Why are the council carrying out construction without maximising value, costs and safety for the community? Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I'm going to ask Anton Peris, our Acting Director of City Service, to respond to your 2 questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your question, Mr. Sigsnack. In response to your first question, we are implementing a program of minor amenity and safety works at Maston Square this financial year. This includes maintenance works like we do across all our local shopping centres, which meet appropriate safety levels. As we are undertaking maintenance works, we're not installing new pedestrian paving. Therefore, the construction code you have mentioned is not applicable. However, we are reusing existing pavers and using suitable construction methodology which meets industry standards. As an added measure, we will use either sandblasting or chemical etching treatment to improve the roughness of the paving surface. The concrete pedestrian crossing, which has been installed, has been constructed to industry standards. In response to your second question, I refer you to our previous responses. Following a decision of Manningham Council not to proceed with the proposed redevelopment of the local shopping centre at Macedon Square, we are undertaking safety and amenity works as part of our ongoing asset renewal and maintenance program that will provide good value to the community. We are committed to improving and maintaining the safety and amenity of our shopping centres like Macedon Square. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you, Anton. Thank you again, Gary. So I'm going to move to item number 8, admission of urgent business, and there are no items of urgent business. Item number 9, planning permit applications, and there are no planning permit applications that require a decision of council this month. Item number 10, city planning, and there are no city planning reports. Item number 11, connected communities. 11.1, advisory committees membership recruitment for 2024. Do I have a mover?
Mayor, I move that the alternative motion be moved. Do I need to read the alternative motion out in full? That the officer recommendation be adopted with the following amendments to attachment 3, Use Advisory Committee Terms of Reference, section 4.1, to read, at least one councillor appointed annually, including the co-chair.
Thank you, Councillor.
Actually, co-chairperson.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Conlon. Councillor Goff, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And from all the time I've been on Manningham, we have had advisory committees. I don't know about Doncaster and Templestowe, but I do know that when the commissioners were in, they actually relied heavily on different advisory committees and community groups letting them know the feelings, because there were no elected councillors at that time, and they were commissioners looking after Manningham, and they did go out. We continued a lot of that method on as Manningham, and including a whole lot of committees that have run quite a number of the things in our community. Again, with the increased emphasis on getting connected with the community, Manningham has really embraced, I suppose, in a more formal way and a more exhaustive way, a number of different community groups or groups that we've organised to give us advice in many of the different areas. And there has been an expansion of that over the number of years, when the emphasis from the state government and from council and our community is for more community input into decision making at local government level. As a result, we've really formalised, and this particular motion, Madam Mayor, is really just formalising our processes that are going to be coming up into the next few years. It's talking about the establishment of a new arts committee to give us advice, but also it's getting the terms of reference in order for our committees to operate from. And so, in many ways, this is just a procedural motion going through adopting the formal processes that we are adopting with all of our committees that are advisory committees to the community. We do, and I know that we do consider them extremely important, and the advice given to our community, from our community members to us, is invaluable in allowing us to assess the decisions that we make.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor Conlon, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. As Councillor Goff mentioned, like this is in response to us trying to be better at listening to the community, which is a great thing, I think. I do note it's only noted in the report that expressions of interest will be being called for the 4 committees mentioned, which are the Arts Advisory Committee, Healthy Ageing Advisory Committee, Youth Advisory Committee, and the Disability Advisory Committee. And I encourage all members of the public to have a look at those and see what they might be involved with, because one of the problems we have as a council is actually getting enough people to apply sometimes to these things. So I think it'd be great if we can do our job as councillors once this is approved to talk to people that we think may be able to contribute to these, and I really appreciate the work the officers put in terms of finding the right people for these committees. And they are functional and they are great. I really enjoy our work, the work that we do on the Recreation and Sports Advisory Committee and other committees I've been involved with. They are critical. They do give us a different perspective, a more community-based perspective that sometimes we don't see. And they are great ways of, I guess, getting left field thinking into our policy. So, yes, I do endorse this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any other speakers for the motion? I will put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item number 11.2, Manningham Economic Development Strategy 2023 to 2028. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chen.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Laura Mayne.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Mayne. Councillor Chen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I do. Thank you. And the draft economic development strategy is a 6-year plan across the full period of next council's term to 2028. The strategy has a focus of supporting existing business and developing opportunities for new investment. It was endorsed at the July council meeting to go to the public exhibition. The consultation was conducted between 27th July and 18th of August. But we only received 5 submissions, and some suggestions are already in the strategy and need to be considered by individual businesses or property owners, or in the future master plan development. Therefore, no update to the strategy is required. So the final draft strategy is presented in the attachment 2. But notably, under the Gender Equality Act, our local government has obligations to consider gender equality in their policies, programs, and services to create better and fairer outcomes and make sure all people have equal access to opportunities and resources. So officers undertook the assessment, and the learning from the assessment was that despite the level of consultation completed, further work should be undertaken to reach more Manningham's diverse community. The finding is very, very important and needs to be incorporated into future projects and work plans that form the action plan in the strategy to make sure all people living and working in Manningham have equal access to opportunities and resources. So the draft strategy is designed to support business and employment in Manningham and development of the local economy. I thank officers for their work and ask councillor support to the strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Councillor Laura Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So as outlined by Councillor Chen, this strategy will aim to support business and employment in Manningham over the next 6 years, while taking into consideration the impact of the recent pandemic and the cost of living crisis. So in developing this strategy, we've undergone a SWOT analysis, which we did through consulting SGS Economic and Planning. We've undergone thorough consultation, contacting the Manningham Business Network, community groups, and our Your Say Manningham platform, all which Councillor Chen addressed. We have dealt with this consultation work. And personally, what I'm most excited about this economic plan is how it might liven up the evening life of some of our activity centres, especially when you consider this alongside maybe our livable city strategy and our vibrant villages action plan, for example. And I'm also really looking forward to how this can further support our local small businesses. So I'd just like to thank the officers for their really thorough and diligent process they put in when developing this strategy. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Mayne. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Stephen Mayne.
Thanks, Mayor. So I support everything that the previous 2 speakers have said. Just a couple of extra points. From what we put out as a draft, we have changed the sunset date on this to 2028. So it's a 6-year strategy. I think previously we were envisaging a a review in 26. I think it makes good sense to not review your economic strategy every 3 or 4 years. I think this has been a good strategy. We've put a lot of work into it, and I think we should give it a few years to bake. We are pretty unique in Manningham with a revenue base which is 94% residential. So you could just say, well, we're just residential. Why do we need an economic strategy? People just come and live here. But it is very important to have it, particularly with work from home, and also the connectivity of people being able to access different parts of Melbourne whilst happily living in Manningham. And we've got the giant North East Link obviously being constructed, which will improve the connectivity into Manningham. I agree with what Councillor Loramain said. I think that the nighttime economy is very important. I think it could be characterised as a wine bars, not nightclubs aspiration. That, you know, as much as some of us like going to high society at the top of Westfield back in the early 90s, we're not looking for all-night doof bars like in South Yarra or Chapel Street, but some wine bars and a little bit of late night somewhere to go, which is not a pokies venue, I think would be a fair summary of the policy. I think some of us are very keen to see co-worker facilities developed in Manningham. The policy is very active about our advocacy on that front. I guess the only thing at a personal level, I think that I personally think we maybe could do a bit more on in the future is supporting our traders. Other councils do spend the ratepayers' money on their traders' associations, i.e. sort of joint marketing campaigns or grants to traders' associations. We have in recent years taken a hands-off approach with that. And I think with future reviews of this, that might be something where we may want to lean in as a council to the resourcing and capacity and governance of our local traders association. I think we learned a bit of a lesson with what happened at Macedon Square, where there is no functioning traders association. But I don't want to finish on a note like that. The note I'd like to finish on actually is to talk about Jackson Court. I remember when Woolworths shut their Safeway or their Woolworths store in Jackson Court. And everyone said it was going to become a ghost town. And there was a big rally there. It was all on Channel 7. Don't turn the Safeway into a Dan Murphy's. It's going to kill off Jackson Court. Now, 10 years later, Jackson Court is this amazing, vibrant local activity centres with so many restaurants. The planning decision on Casavini becoming an Aldi and some residential around it was an inspired decision. Councillor Gough, I know you're a supporter of that. And if you go to Jackson Court any night of the week now, it is a booming, thriving, vibrant example of a nighttime economy in Manningham. I know that the owners perhaps of the Pines are probably jealous of that everyone seems to be going to Jackson Court in the evening, and Westfield and Templestowe Village. And just a well done to all those traders at Jackson Court. It's just a great example of a flourishing economic activity centre in Manningham, supported by council, and, you know, well done to all involved.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Moen. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? I'm going to put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item number 12, City Services, and there are no City Services reports. Item number 13, Experience and Capability. 13.1, Manningham Quarterly Report, Quarter 4, April to June 2022-23. Do I have a mover?
That the recommendation be adopted, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cardi Lang. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Thomas Lightbody. Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, councillors, as we know, this is a performance review report, but can I encourage you to have a look at the front cover, because it does have the best front cover ever. It has our waste team on the cover, and it is them in action as FOGO was rolled out. But to what the report has inside, and it is a summary of our key operations. It's a summary of our finance, it's a summary of our capital works for the quarter of April 2022 to June 2023. It's an update on our council plan, how well we're going in the area of governance, expenses, community engagement, and really it is the operations. So it's a review of our operations. The report has some key findings. It's very pleasing to see that there was 45.9 million spent on capital infrastructure, as well as 4.1 million spent on property acquisition, which gave us a total 50 million spend on our capital works project, which was about 80% of the projects that we have, with 9 to be completed in our next quarter as well. But what probably really matters was what was that spent on. And so 11.1 million was spent on roads, 10.4 was spent on buildings, 4.4 million was spent on recreation and leisure services, 3.8 million on drainage, 3.7 million on open space, 2.2 million on footpaths, 2 million on technology, and 1.5 million on our circular economy projects, and then 1.3 million on plant and equipment. So what does that mean to us? Well, it's some big projects like Tuckers Road, it's the footpath reconstruction of Blackburn Road, it's Everard Drive drainage, Jumping Creek Road, and Saxon Drive resealing works. They're the works that you can see from these capital works spends. There's also the spend on renewing and existing our assets, which is so important because that is the longevity of our assets that we have. It lasts longer, it's more efficient, and we don't have to keep building new when we can keep maintaining the ones we have to be good for fit. I'm also pleased to report that the other areas that it identified was that we are doing really well with our budget and our financing, that we still had a surplus of 7.6 million. Yes, it was a little bit lower than what we forecast, but we did have some big one-off expenditures in our renewing our assets and also our rollout of FOGO. I'm pleased to report, councillors, that all our council plan performance indicators are on track, and we can be pleased that our council plan is going where we directed it to go 3 years ago and 1 year left to go. And also that our council allowances are well below what is budgeted, and I think that shows that we are a really sustainable council. We also have been well governed in our statutory and planning area, with 93.1 of our standard applications being done within the statutory 60 days. And also 33 out of our 38 decisions were made public, so we had 100% council attendance at all our meetings too. So we're well governed as well, which I know is one of our priorities. To keep us on our community engagement, we have prioritised our community and hearing from them and being truly open and listening to their feedback. And we have done that on our drafting policy for our open space. We have done that on our economic development strategy, which you've heard that we have committed to tonight. We've done that in our healthy ageing and our social connection, really wanting to know our residents and what they need. And we've also done that on our draft community infrastructure plan. Our CEO is also operating where he should be too, covering the fact that he has got KPIs set by council and that he is on track with those as well. So in all, we are in a good position. It's a great financial report, and I hope that has done justice to summarise it for us for the last quarter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carly Lang. Councillor Lightbody, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I don't have anything to add except that I think I'd like to thank all the staff and everything for the past quarter. I think it's been fantastic, especially with the rollout of FOGO. I think it's been very successful. And I think is my key highlight for the past few months has been how successful our rollout has been, and our numbers show that, and the conversations I've been having out in the community show that as well. So I'd really like to congratulate that team especially, but also everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lightbody. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Anna Chen.
Thank you, Mayor. And about the performances, one of the important matters is about community engagement. Why it is so important and it's about our performances is because community engagement that increases the visibility and understanding of issues and empowers our communities to have their say on decisions that affect their life and important to their life as well. So our community engagement activities in Q4 included, as Councillor Carly Lam mentioned before, that included healthy aging, social connection, community infrastructure plan, draft pricing policy for active open space and economic development strategy. I stand up just to make a special mention that goes to near 300 older residents in our community who took the time to answer feedback, to answer surveys, to the healthy aging strategy that mentioned to them very much so. So one of the priorities from their survey that include expanding and enhancing community and personal transport. That's why we have the community transport available now, is in operation now, and I understand that. And from October, perhaps the services will expand furthermore. And also, we hear from the older people that they wish to provide information about services in events and in a copy form, hard copy form, not digital form. And also, they wish to have hands-on assistance to connect digitally to essential systems like MyGov, Centrelink, and My Aged Care. Also improve physical access to council's buildings. They also tell councils that they wish to expand communications and specific services for older residents from culturally diverse background. Also, they told council that they wish to provide information session on key life stages. And also, they told council they wish to recognize the mental health stress of carers, which carers that care for their mental health is very, very important. So that is the old resident told us in their survey. And then we listen to you, and I believe that council in their future plans of their programs and projects will take that into account. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Do I have any other speakers for the motion? I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 14, Chief Executive Officer. 14.1, Audit and Risk Committee Chair's Biannual Report. Do I have a mover?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. And do I have a seconder?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Mayne. Councillor Stephen Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mayor. So I think when I left this council in 2012, there wasn't any, or if there was any, it was very little public transparency on the workings of the Audit Committee. And on getting elected back here in 2020, I was very pleased to discover that in the intervening 8 years, a transparency regime had been introduced. And this is it tonight, where twice a year we have a summary of what the Audit Committee has been looking at. And as councillors would be aware, twice a year we also mandate that the independent chair of the Audit Committee, Andrew Dix, is invited in to present to councillors. That's to elevate the status of the independent chair of the Audit Committee, to raise any issues with councillors and the management team at a regular briefing session. But that's not a public endeavour. So this is a public endeavour, and it's very good transparency. So if you read the report, you can see that over the last year we've had an audit, for instance, into the management of our cleaning services. We've tweaked some enterprise risks, so cutting 3 of them from strategic to operating. We had a good audit on our tree management, which produced some excellent data on managing our trees and the risks associated with our very large trees. We had a good food safety audit, and we had quite a good customer service audit. Importantly, this document also provides visibility as to the internal audit program in the current financial year. So we do 6 internal audits a year through the current provider has been Pitcher Partners in the previous year. And the 6 topics that the Audit Committee have decided to look at in 23-24 are 1, environmental sustainability, climate change adaptation framework; 2, asset renewal management; 3, grants management; 4, cybersecurity; 5, local government authority community engagement policy framework, and 6, contract management system and framework. So just as an example as to why you would pick some of those areas, contract management is an important area. We're quite a contracted out council. If you look at how we manage it, we've, for instance, recontracted recently the management of Aqua Arena and our highball facilities to Aligned Leisure. So the internal audit looking at contract management systems will look at that, which is a material, large contract. Obviously, we've contracted out waste management. We don't run kinders, we don't run aged care. We've contracted out pretty much everything compared to most others, with the exception of parks and gardens, where we do most of that in-house. So anyway, look, I think this is it's a good report. You might say it's boring. What's the Audit and Risk Committee doing? But overall, as a member of that committee, I've only been on it for 9 months. I have been impressed with the calibre of the independent members, the quality of the reports that have been coming in from Pitcher Partners, watching the interaction between management and the auditors, and receiving a very clean financial report with everyone, including the Auditor General's office, been very impressed with the efficiency of how it was put together and the cleanness and transparency of the accounts. So overall, as an elected councillor sitting on the Audit Committee, what I'm basically saying is that it's a well-run council with good financials. The audit program is robust and nimble, and I think the community should take heart from the way the governance and the assurance is working at the City of Manningham.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Councillor Laura Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, I do think Councillor Stephen Mayne covered it pretty well. I don't have too much more to add, which is probably a good thing. Not too many issues popping up for audit and risk, and not too much to report on is nothing to complain about. So overall, I'd just like to assure the community that there are no concerns at audit and risk level that are out of reach for the council, and I'd also like to thank the officers for their report.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Mayne. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers for the motion? Then I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Moving to item 14.2, informal meetings of councillors. Do I have a mover? Councillor Andrew Conlon.
Yes, I'd like to move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. And a seconder? Councillor Laura Mayne. Thank you. Councillor Conlon, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just very briefly, councillors, this is just obviously just in noting the meetings that we've all attended, and I do note that I think there's 11 or so meetings there, and that's just for the 1 month. So it shows that we're doing our job diligently. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. I concur. Councillor Laura Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion? Do I have any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers for? I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 14.3, documents for sealing. Do I have a mover? Councillor Thomas Lightbody.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder?
I second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Lightbody, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Lang?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'm just going to put that to a vote. All those in favour? And again, it's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 15, urgent business. We have no urgent business. Councillors, I think Councillor Michelle Kleinert has just dropped out. We'll just note that Councillor Kleinert's dropped out while we proceed through the agenda. So item 15, urgent business. There are no items of urgent business. Item number 16, councillor reports and question time. So I would like to kick off the councillor reports and question time myself. I alluded to it earlier this evening that this afternoon myself and the CEO and other councillors and members of the exec team attended the farewell event for our Meals on Wheels volunteers, and it was an amazing event, and I want to congratulate the officers for creating such a beautiful afternoon tea, and also for our floor show, which was amusing and emotional for me. But I want to thank all of our volunteers who have been providing Meals on Wheels to our residents for 40 years since Meals on Wheels started. And we had volunteers from 1 year right up to 40 years. So I would like to formally acknowledge them. As I said earlier, Kerry Keneally, our Manager of Aged Care and Disability Support Services, said, what we do every single day makes a difference to the community, and what a gift that is, and it's a gift for us. So I want to thank them. And very quickly, I'd also like to thank the Manningham community. From the Mayoral Charity Gala, we raised $51,000. We had 250 people attend the gala, and it's just fabulous. The support's fabulous. We are very soon going to launch our very first Memory Lane Cafe with the support of Manicare in Doncaster, and I look forward to the learnings for that and how we can grow that and deliver future cafes over time. So I want to thank everybody for their support of that very important event. Councillors, would anyone else like to make a report? Oh, hands go up so quickly. Councillor Laura Main.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to report a reminder to the community that there is the upcoming referendum on October 14th, asking the Australian public if they would approve to a voice to Parliament. Manningham Council is taking a neutral position and has published information on our website laying out what this referendum is and how it came about. We will also shortly be publishing the Wurundjeri stance, which is to vote yes in this referendum. I really highly recommend all members of our community educate themselves about what this referendum is before they vote. Personally and independently of Council, I will be voting yes for this upcoming referendum because I strongly believe in consulting with our Indigenous community about the issues that impact them. The concept of the voice came from the Uluru Statement from the Heart, which involved a national conference in 2017 and underwent tremendous amounts of consultation with our Indigenous community. Something that really swayed my personal decision to vote yes in this upcoming referendum is the current polls that find that over 80% of our Indigenous community support a voice to Parliament. I also consider that this is not a very radical concept, considering the voice will not even have real voting power, essentially. And I also have concerns about the future reconciliation action if this referendum was to not pass. So once again, I really urge all members of our community to fully educate themselves so they can make their own informed decision. Don't simply vote because someone's told you to vote a certain way. Please source your own information, find out what Indigenous people, what they want, and yeah, really make your own informed decision. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kylie Lang.
Thank you. Councillors, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the last month Warrandyte hosted the Warrandyte Youth Arts Award, and that was hosted at the Warrandyte Mechanics Hall. And I just wanted to let you know a bit of information about what that's about. The award process is where young artists nominate 3 professionals in their art form, and they are their assessors. So they look for heroes in their particular art form, ones that have quite a professional standard. They contact them, they ask them, would you be prepared to judge my upcoming standard? And then they go through a nomination process. And councillors, for a young person, this takes tremendous audacity. It takes perseverance and determination to be judged by people you see as your heroes about your own art form and your own true potential. So I just would like to congratulate all 5 nominees. So that is Bridie Francis, Agnesia Markwell, and Eddie Rook, Ariel Price, and Isabel Hong. And I also then would like to say that out of this, it's not these nominees are not necessarily awarded because they've won or the best, but it is the person who receives the award will benefit most from this award at this point in their career to help them feel and to fulfil their full potential as an artist. And so therefore I would like to congratulate Bridie and Agnesia for their receiving of the award, both being Bridie being a musician and a singer and a songwriter, and Agnesia being an opera singer. And I would like to congratulate all young youth nominees for their determination and their guts to get in there and find out their true potential from people they see as heroes. So well done.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have any other Councillor Anna Chen.
Just move on to more arts performances. And one of our Victoria's oldest concert band, Manningham, our very proud Manningham Concert Band, held its annual gala concert with a space-themed music and images from across our galaxy, including Star Wars and E.T. on the 2nd of September that bring back all those beautiful memories with my children in the theater watching the movies. The band also acknowledged members who have reached remarkable service milestones, including Jill Wolfenden, who has reached her 30 years of service, and the musical director Andrew Van Germert, 40 years of service. Next year, the band will be celebrating its 50th anniversary, and the band would love to hear from the community any suggestions for themes or music. So for any contact details, our community, our residents, please go to manningham.vic.gov.au to contact them with your beautiful idea or innovative idea. And by way of, I just want to move from music to paintings. And I visited the Doncaster Temple Store Artists Society Spring Exhibition today. And the exhibition was amazing. And the spring exhibition is open from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. daily until the 1st of October. At the Old Shire Hall, corner Doncaster Road and Council Street. Entry is free, and we all love free entry, wouldn't we? And visiting an art gallery can be very enjoyable. The art gallery is run by volunteers, and I encourage everyone to visit a gallery and perhaps join the society if you like, to participate in their activities to support our volunteers and the artists in Manningham. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and I would support both of those comments. They're a great exhibition and a great concert. Councillor Thomas Lightbody.
Thank you. I'd also like to report on the upcoming Indigenous Voice and Indigenous Indigenous Recognition referendum. And I'd like to start off by just going through a brief history of Indigenous consultative groups and bodies. So the first one was in 1973, which is the National Aboriginal Consultative Committee, was set up and frequently clashed with the Labor government that formed it, and then was abolished by the following Liberal government, which in its place had the National Aboriginal Conference, which was then abolished by the following Hawke government. Then we had the ATSIC until that was abolished by the Howard government, who then created the NIC, which was changed to the NCAFP, which the idea of that one was that it was an incorporated body of its own, which would mean that it could be sort of prevented from being abolished in the future. But the following Abbott government cut funding and it went into voluntary administration and then dissolved in 2019. I think this shows that the reason we need to have the voice in the Constitution is so that future governments, when they don't necessarily want to listen or they don't like what's being told to them, they can't control the narrative, have to listen. Sure, future governments can change it, can sort of change it depending on what the parliament needs and what the government needs at the time, but there'll always have to be something there. There'll always have to be an advisory committee. And I think as someone who chairs advisory committees at council, I can see the great importance of them. At Manningham, we have our own reconciliation action plan working group, and I think the federal government should have the same. I think it's about time that we start making decisions with our Indigenous people rather than for our Indigenous people or to our Indigenous people. And I think the biggest thing for me about the Indigenous voice is that it will be independent from party politics.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Andrew Conlon.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm requesting some information from officers. So it's sort of a question on notice, I guess. In light of the dangerous intersection at Five Ways, which is the intersection of Warrandyte Ringwood Road, Croydon Road, and that little
Hussies.
Lane, that's the one, and also then the little Brumbies Lane down the side there, as well as the Shell service station right there on the corner, which is, every time I go through there, it amazes me there's not more accidents. I know that it's been on our advocacy agenda for some time to try and get something done, and unfortunately, because it's not our road, we can't do anything about it. So I'd really appreciate a report from the officers that can be public on what we have done in terms of encouraging the state government to take responsibility, including what concepts have we put forward, approximate cost for those concepts, and what the response has been from the department responsible. And I'd like to be made public if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. I'm going to ask our CEO to respond.
Yeah, look, thanks for the question, Councillor Conlon. More than happy to provide an update to yourself and the councils and obviously the public on the advocacy work that's occurred to date, the conversations that we've had with the Department of Transport about it, and the sorts of ideas and concepts that we've put on the table to the state in order to make it happen.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. It's interesting to note that in the RACV report on dangerous roads, that came up as Manningham's most dangerous intersection. Any other reports or questions, councillors? Councillor Stephen Mayne.
Yes, I think we probably can't let it pass that in light of a big send-off for Ryan Smith, that our Premier has resigned after 9 years. Brax did 8 years, Kenneth did 7 years, so it's a big day. And I think we should, whenever a leader leads, we should acknowledge the moment and wish him all the best. In terms of legacy for Manningham, obviously the cancelling East-West and building North-East Link is a pretty massive long-term decisions in terms of the connectivity. The planning revolution he's just done, announced, which has shocked quite a few of us. I don't think he really respected our sector, if I'm honest. He came out here countless times and never told us he was coming and never invited the mayor. So I look forward to his successor perhaps respecting local government, but I acknowledge he was a dramatic reforming Premier and wish him all the best. And just on the voice, I'd like to echo the sentiments of Councillor Laura Mayne and Councillor Lightbody. I personally would have liked the idea of council endorsing the voice like some of our neighbours, such as Banyule, Yarra Ranges and Nillumbik. It's a very modest proposal, recognition and a permanent advisory committee. I've been surprised by the resistance, the pressure on people not to endorse it. Disappointed in the federal coalition in wrecking it, in my view, and politicising it. And I really hope it gets up because I worry about the danger that will be caused. We fly the Indigenous flag here. We acknowledge, do the welcome to country. I think we could have stepped up and in line with our reconciliation action plan actually endorsed the voice. It wasn't to be. Some of us support it individually, and I really hope it does get up because I think it's important for history, for reconciliation, and for our international reputation.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, it just leaves you, Councillor Goff.
Mayor, I just want to raise something that actually occurred very recently with the state government looking at taking over planning from council in quite a number of areas. That is the one thing that will have a great impact on a lot of people that live in Manningham, especially if they're living around Doncaster Hill and any activity centres or any development over $50 million. What I'm asking is if we can get a report back on what rights it will take away, because essentially, from my understanding, and I want to know whether this is correct or not, that people will not be able to appeal anywhere on any applications because they won't go through a process that there will be an appeal mechanism. Not that I've heard, but I'd like to know whether there is an appeal mechanism within there, because VCAT is the one that sort of, if the decision is made, I suppose, by the state government and it follows the lines of government schools, government land, state government land, they can build anything anywhere they want, as they did with basketball courts up against houses. No consultation, nothing, it just gets built. So I'm just wondering if we can get a report on the effect of our community, of their rights to appeal or to have a say, or can they take, if they disagree, any other action, or do they just have to sit there and let the state run over them?
Thank you, Councillor Goff. I'll ask the CEO to respond.
Thank you for the question, and the shorter answer is absolutely. We'll be reporting to council on the implications of it. I can tell you that Fiona Choice and the planning team and the City Planning Directorate are well across what's occurring in that sector. We are actively working with the MAV and also the Eastern Region group of councils to unpack what the implications are. They're quite wide-ranging and complex, and there's been a raft of legislation already brought in. But to answer really briefly, the concern around appeal rights, there's a range of concerns that are emerging for the sector with these changes, and absolutely the appeal rights of community members, as they can presently, to come to council and represent their concerns and views, be that in a submitters meeting or other ways, is at risk. And that's certainly something that I think most council and councillors are concerned about on behalf of their community members. There are a range of other things as well that we are concerned about, as well as some positive elements, but we will certainly report to council, and obviously then an opportunity to engage in conversations with our community about what the implications might be.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, councillors. I am now going to move to item number 17, confidential reports. Do I have a mover? Councillor Conlon.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that council close the meeting to the public pursuant to section 68, sorry.
Do you need your glasses too, Councillor? 66.
66(1) and 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider the following items. Item 17.1, strategic property portfolio update, and item 17.2, the procurement of an independent advisor for the Chief Executive Officer Employment and Remuneration Committee.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
I second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cully-Lang. I will put that to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. That's unanimous. So we will now close this meeting to members of the public and end the live stream to consider these confidential reports. Thank you all for joining the meeting this evening.